Okay, week 5 in CIT82. Let's go ahead and get started. So pull up your lecture notes, and I will say, when I was grading, I think I may have not made a point of checking to make sure everyone had been doing the class topics. So know that next week I'll be more diligent about that. So make sure you have your lecture doc open and you're taking a few notes. So the first thing I'd like to see in your notes is valleydevfest.com. So developer fest for the Central Valley. It resolves, interestingly enough, if you look at the domain, to a Firebase hosting, something we will talk about in this course. One of the hosting options, plus a lot of other things. But back to the event. So Google Developer Groups is something that I help organize here in Fresno, and on October 22nd we hold our largest event for the year and one of the largest tech events in Fresno. So come check it out or check out the event site, check out the teaser video, which I did, was really fun. And if you're interested, the tickets are $5 for students, but if that prevents you from coming, please talk to me because I have some free tickets. We're hoping for a few number of folks, 4 tracks, 20 sessions covering everything from Android to cloud to mobile development. Also a track for Maker, the Fresno IdeaWorks Makerspace, where they'll be building sumo bots. So check this out. If you want more information than what's here, let me know. If you have any questions, let me know, but put that in your notes. See if that works for you. We don't have the schedule of what is going to be done today yet, but we do have some folks coming from Google directly, which is awesome. And we also have what's called the GDEs, Google Developer Experts. So, plus some really great local speakers. So I want you to check that out. And the other thing I want you to check out, and this goes in your notes, and many of you have already done this, but go to my YouTube channel. Okay. Just Rhea Waller. Hopefully many of you are already there. But there's a video here, Fresno City College Business Education Counselor. So I want you to find this video. It's on my channel, and I want you to have something in your notes about it because I want to make sure you all understand the importance of SCPs. Really important for Fresno City College students to have them, and what happens if you don't, right? So I want you to check that out. So go to my channel. Fresno City College. Lori is this week recorded this for her, so check it out. Okay, so those are the 2 things on your class topics. So what I'd like to talk about is what I already foreshadowed in week 4 for what was going to come this week. So now it's here, and I have the select your editor and some web hosting for the hands-on the current topics. And as I talked about, the lecture for this week, next week, and the week after won't be a traditional lecture that you've seen. There's nothing traditional at this point, but it will be a code along experience. And last week I talked about, and I fumbled through a little bit, just how to create that folder up on your Google Drive, right, and how to code along. So to be more clear this week, not this one, sorry, not that one, but in week 5, is that for every chapter, and they call it a chapter, okay, you need to have coded along with what James Williamson is doing in the videos, okay. So for this week, I'd want to see, I don't think there's any code in the first one, but in the number 1 intro, so that's chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, okay, up to page formatting, I believe. So we could go look at it real quick. So if I'm over here at James's course, right, so introduction, page, and then all of 3, so we'd have 3 chapters that you've coded along. And if you remember from last week, the way I showed this was having you create inside of your shared with Rio a code along subdirectory, and then within there you create the chapters for each one, and then at what I would see, you would share the link with me. So anyway, I showed you that last week, but I'm going to show you this week on Windows because last week I was on my Mac, and I'm on my Mac today, but I'm actually going to use something called VirtualBox, and I'm going to run Windows 10 inside of my Mac so I can show you this. So what I did is I went ahead and on my environment here, on my Windows environment, I went ahead and searched for Google Drive app, and I downloaded it into my local Windows installation. And what that gave me is download it for the PC. So once I did that, what that gave me, which was really awesome, was inside of my File Explorer then, is I have the drive. Okay, so one thing, because for me I have a huge, so that's step one, is do that step, right? Hopefully you've already created under our CIT82 Spring 16 or whatever you've named it, the subdirectory. But you want to get this Google Drive in your File Explorer. And then what I did, because I have such a huge Google Drive content, I only wanted one particular one synced to my local system. If you don't have a lot, then this may not be an issue. But what I did, and just to show you, is I right-clicked on the Google Drive, and then there was something called Preferences. And what this allowed me to do was go through and find the subdirectory. I think it goes up here. And then in that find that subdirectory that I'd created, and then the code along. And then I synced these, okay? So just that subdirectory. And the reason I did that was so that I could pull it up in my what appears to be my local drive, but is really my drive out on Google Drive. So let me just show you the other part of this. So I talked about Sublime Text last time, so I went ahead and in this Windows installation installed the latest version, Sublime Text 3. And so as you're watching the video and he's coding, you code along, you do it along with him. So the way you would do this is I'm going to open a folder, and so for me I can just click on my Google Drive 80. Now remember, the only reason that's showing up is because of the way that I just did the sync. I believe you should see it either way. Shared with Rio, code along. And actually what I'm going to do here is just open this folder, or select it, okay? And then I'd already created chapter 1, okay? I was just playing around with the index files. He has you name them different things. You will learn about why you name things the first file index, I believe, through this course. So because you'll be doing chapter 2 as well, let me just show you the thing you can do here is I think you can right click and just do new. Actually, you want to do it here. No, you do it there. Right click on the code along. Let me zoom in so you can see this a little clearer. So what I'm doing here is right clicking, new folder, and then I would call it, let's see if it's going to do it, new folder. I wonder what happened. Should be giving me the option here. I'm not sure why it's not. Let's go new folder. Okay, well I'll do it the other way then. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't like that process. So here's the other way I would do it, as I'd find it in folder. Oh, no, I'd find it in my Explorer like I was just in a minute ago. I'll play with that after, maybe pause and figure out what happened. But the other way you could do this is actually create the subdirectories through the Explorer that I was just looking at, right? So it'd be fun to do it this way too, because we can show you how when you're out here on the code along, right? And then you create a new folder out here, call it chapter 2. What should work here is that when you go back to your, oh, it does show up here. Ah, you know what? It was just lagging. Look what happened. I got impatient and it did create it. And that's probably just because of the connection to Google Drive here. So you can do this either way, but you'll have, for each chapter that you do, then you'll have the files that they have you create. Okay. The example files that I was talking about last week are just for you to reference, not to use, to reference in case there was something you weren't seeing that was working. I will tell you, you can click on a file to see, because this you're writing the HTML code, and if you want to see what it looks like, you can open in a browser, and then it'll open that document, and I'm going to tell it Chrome in this instance. Probably nothing in here because I think I didn't have any code, right? Which is something, by the way, I'll show you in a minute. Another thing we're gonna do where you will be doing some hosting, but let's just come down here and I'll do what's called H1. I hit tab there. Something called Emmet we'll talk about later. And I'll do like a hello world. But again, I'm just giving the example here. So now that I've done that, the one thing about that I don't necessarily like about Sublime that I love about WebStorm is that I have to save the document, and then I come over here and I'll see hello world. Okay, so this is the file rendered into the browser. All right. Okay, so when you submit, then what you'll end up doing is submitting the link to, just like you've given me a link to the actual file in lecture, like as an example under lecture. So in this case, you would just give me the link to the code along, and then I will see in there the chapters that you've done that will correspond to that. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that as a way to say that's the steps that you need to take to do that work, and then I'm going to move back into my Mac and continue on. So hopefully that gives you what you need for getting the code along stuff that we'll start doing, which I think should be maybe a little more fun than the straight lectures, although there's been some great information, really important stuff. Most of you, your notes are looking awesome. I hope you're getting as much as your notes appear that you are. All right, so the other thing I already talked about is the editor, right? I suggest Sublime Text. I actually will have a class as far as the lynda.com in the future about getting more and like more experience with Sublime. So this week, right, so we're into week 5 here. So we're talking about the editor, we're talking about web host, finding some options out there. And then in week 6, we continue our code along. And then we're going to get you started with GitHub pages. And what you'll need to do for this week is just set up your accounts on GitHub, right? So you go to GitHub. GitHub is a version control for code for people who write and create stuff out of code. And then GitHub Pages is a way to actually host your stuff out there. So this will be one of our first creating HTML documents that are hosted out on the web. So this will be the adventure we do into here. So next week's video, I actually will go over this with you. So if you already have a GitHub account, then you don't have to create another one. But if you don't, if you want to just work ahead a little bit, you can go ahead and create your account. And then next week, I'll walk you through how to use GitHub Pages to create simple hosting. Okay. So I think that's enough for the day. We've already talked about all the stuff you need to do here for these couple of weeks, and hopefully given you what you need to be successful. If you didn't catch it, I did change, was a little more lenient on the replies, on the main post and the replies. As long as I'm not seeing that you're doing them on the very last night before they're due, right? As long as they're done a day or so before, and I mean by that the main replies, then I'm not going to mark off. But if you're doing them all at the same last minute, then you are going to see a few points come off of that stuff. So just try not to do that. Okay? All right. I hope you have a wonderful week, week 5 in CIT 82. Peace out.